Y'all, did you see what's going on in Cuba right now? Has anybody else seen what's happening in Cuba? I try not to be political. I usually stay away from non-surgery topics. But it's 5:30 in the morning and I can't sleep, and this is my therapy usually. So, y'all are my audience. Listen to me. Y'all, I married my husband, and before I met him, I really only knew one girl who was from Cuba. I went to school with her when I was a kid, didn't know anything else. I, like many other people, learned about Fidel Castro the way many of us learn about Fidel Castro, hearing stuff here and there, here and there, here and there, and you eventually learn that Cuba's just a bad place, it sucks, and that the U.S. doesn't have anything to do with them, right? Once I met my husband, I learned a lot more about Cuba, especially through him and his family, his mom. And basically, what I learned from them was that Fidel Castro came from like a really, really poor upbringing and struggled a lot and hated that the poor people struggled the way that they did. And he wanted to supposedly get the government to help everybody. And yet, his way of doing that was to impose communism. So you know that when you have a communist system, the government runs everything and kind of takes ownership of everything. You can't really own much or do much. And so when it came to businesses that were in Cuba in the 1960s, I believe it was like 60 or 62, the Cuban government, or Fidel Castro and his agrarian companies, they took over all of the companies that were in Cuba. And the U.S. was like, excuse me? Hello? Yeah, nah, we're not fucking with you. And they literally just stopped trading with Cuba. They stopped giving Cuba access to U.S. money, to U.S. products, and to U.S. access in general. They also told anybody that was from the U.S. that if they went to Cuba against their advice, they're on their own. Fast forward to 1982, the U.S. officially claimed that Cuba is a terrorist-sponsored country, meaning that they're sponsored by terrorists, their government is terroristic, and yeah, again, we don't support those people, we don't help those people, we don't feed their agenda or their pockets. Unfortunately, this has affected Cuba in a lot of ways because the Cuban people, are kind of helpless to this. They've been left poor and under resourced and not permitted to pass a certain limit so that they can't regain control of the country. But the point is that now there is no electricity in Cuba. Cuba is completely dark. It's in the dark, 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 lights out, dark, since yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it is right now 5:36 a.m. my time, Eastern time. I mean, this is crazy. Can you imagine being with no power for 24 hours? I live in the DR, and that's never happened here. Wait, I mean, it's probably happened. It's just never happened to me. Seriously, the implications of having no power, there's no running water. You can't flush your toilet. The waters don't reach the faucet. Um, you can't do a lot of things like drive. There's no light in the street, there's no light in the house. Obviously there's no TV, there's no internet, there is definitely no communication, there's no cell phones, there's very few generators. The generators that are available are in high-end luxury hotels, maybe some hospitals and things like that, but again, there's no gas, there's no oil, there's nothing right now. The power grid has had a countrywide shutdown, and so people are going to be, or are dying. They're dying. People are hungry. People are sick. People are without access. I'm sure people are experiencing crime. The government is telling people not to go out, not to go into the street so that they don't use the rest of the emergency power that they have. But officially, they're blaming the U.S. for the reason why they have no power. They're saying that we're blocking them from resources that are allowing them to, power their nation. You know, this really sucks. We have family there. My husband's family is in Cuba, actively, not able to come out. I've been trying to get his mother's sisters here for years before she passed away, so they could just have a little bit of time, and they're supposed to be allowed to come to DR, but it just never happened. You can't do it. It's just terrible. So my prayers are with the people for Cuba, but my advice is also with y'all. Take time when you go to the supermarket and buy a few cans of food and just put them away. Every time you go to the supermarket, buy a case of water if it's $1, $2. You're gonna throw that $2 away on something else later. Yo, buy yourself a case of water, stash it. Buy yourself powdered juices. Buy yourself powdered milk or boxed milks. Buy yourself cans of stuff that you can put away. God forbid anything like this happens. things go bad really quick, especially if you're here, like in a country like DR, where it's 96 degrees anytime during the day, and the light goes out with the body heat and everything else, and shit gets messed up fast. Water turns bad fast. Still water gets sick quick. I mean, there's a lot to think about. It can happen for us too. So just be careful. Take care of yourself. Pray for the people of Cuba.